Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Painting with Victor Rigoli. I'm back in my garage today and I'm going to be stretching some canvas for some stretcher bars that I built, 30 by 40. Let me just grab that over here and show it to you real quick here. Hopefully you can see all this on the camera. Just to demo this a little bit. I bought some, I actually, to back up, I'm going to tell you a little story. I've been wanting to do some larger type paintings. And so I was looking at some canvases that I already had up in my studio here. And I try to keep a list of what canvases I have in my inventory. And I did not have a gallery wrapped, 1.5 inch deep, 30 by 40 inch canvas. So I said, okay. So I thought, well, I'll just ride over to the local craft store, Hobby Lobby, Michael's, that kind of thing, and started looking. And I found one at Hobby Lobby, and it was their top of the line. And it was, the 30 by 40 with 1.5 inches deep. And they wanted like $28 for it. And I got to thinking, I said, wow, do I want to pay $28 for that thing? And I thought, I picked it out, I looked at it, and I decided what I would do is, I think I could build. I've got canvas. I got the staple gun, I got all that stuff, I've got the canvas pliers. I said, maybe I could build that myself. And I said, all right, let me go to Lowe's. And so I went to Lowe's and started looking at some wood. And I built some before, and I started getting the wood material together, and the next thing I knew, I had close to $30 in wood, at least. And I thought, well, is it just smarter just to go on over to Hobby Lobby and buy it? Or do I think of something else? And so what I found out I could do is that, let's see if I've got a piece over here that I can show you, that couple pieces here. And I'll try to take a picture of this so you can see it a little bit up close. This is about 1 inch wide here, and it's 1.5 inches deep. Okay, 1.5 inches deep by 1 inch. And I found these, and they were like $7.50 for an 8-foot piece. And I said, well, gosh, I would need 2 pieces to get the 2 40 inches and 2 30 inches out of it. And instead of laying it flat, because I've done that before, I've taken it and laid the wood flat, and I've built it up, and I've also added things like a quarter round toe molding, shoe molding kind of thing. And I might have something over here that I can show you real quick, kind of off the camera. But here's one that I made before. I mean, the bottom piece here is the 1/2 inch by 1.5 inches. This is another little piece here. It's about not quite a 1/2 inch, but a little bit bigger than a 1/4 inch. And I glued that on top, and then I came in with a quarter round, and the quarter round gave me a slope, which was great. So this length here is 1.5 inches, and I've sanded that edge off. And then with the quarter round just takes it, and it gives me a slope down. So when my canvas comes up and goes out, and this painting surface will be here, it's kind of lifted off because it slopes down. And if you notice, a lot of your stretcher bars are like that. They have kind of a ridge. Just call it a little ridge, and you want that canvas to just kind of float across that ridge. But this gave me, the 1.5 inches that I was looking for, and it came out great. This is about 1.5 inches, which gives you a little bit more room to put your staples in, across. But it was adding up, and we all know art supplies materials have increased, but also your lumber has increased at your box stores, and it's getting more and more expensive. And everything's just going up and up, and there's a lot of this wood that you get from Lowe's. It's not manufactured and come from the United States, unfortunately. Some of it is made overseas and it's shipped here, and so we know about all these tariffs that are going on. But anyway, taking this one piece here, I thought, well, you know, what I could do is stand it up like this. This gives me my 1.5 inches here, and the canvas will come out, the canvas will wrap, and then come out this way. Now, the disadvantage is that this is, let's see, how wide that is. It's 3/4 inch, okay? But this is where my staples will go. And it still gives me enough room, you know, to put the staples in and that kind of thing. But it did reduce the cost. So for about, let's just say $8, $16, 15 to 16 bucks, I had all the wood, okay? And as you can see here, for this one, because of the size, I definitely wanted to have a cross beam here or a support across, because when you start stretching your canvas, if you're not careful, if you stretch it really tight, this piece in here, because it's long, it can bow in a little bit, the same thing at the bottom. So you got to be careful of that. I had some extra pieces, so I made me some corner braces for this stretcher bar setup. Just cut some pieces in there. I've got a nail gun, and so once I glued these corners in, then I was able to, you know, use my nail gun. One of the things that I did too is I have a router, and I was able to use one of the bits on my router to round off one edge. And so when I wrap the canvas, it'll be stapled down here, it'll come up, and then it'll go out this way. And when it does, this is rounded off. So it's only got like maybe a 1/2 inch of that before it starts curving down. So that gives me that edge there, so it won't be a sharp edge. So when I'm painting, if I accidentally put a little pressure there, it's not going to leave a crease. And you probably have seen that, especially when you have, if you're not careful and you have a center bar, and if your canvas is not stretched very tight and it's loose and you're painting and you're putting a lot of pressure on there, or maybe you're scrumbling in, or maybe you're blocking in and getting paint on there, the next thing you know, you could have some creases on there. So you have to really be careful. One thing that I recommend that you do, and this is something that I did before on another painting that I was working on to prevent that from happening, I had some foam, like styrofoam pieces, and I cut them, and they fit perfectly inside there, and it gave me a little cushion so it wouldn't press down. I like my canvas tight, like a drum. I really do. And you know, that this whole thing probably cost me, that's, you know, $16 worth of wood. Let's just say $17, $18 worth of wood, okay? So I'm still coming out ahead versus buying it at the local, you know, arts and crafts supply store. Now, I did price some online at the two major big, you know, supply companies, Dick Plex as well as Jerry's Autorama, and you're looking at $50 to $70 to $80 to $100 for that size of a canvas at a higher end. Even the low end was like 50, 60 bucks. Then you got to figure in, a lot of these companies will ship it to you free if you spend $69 or more. If not, it's going to be about $7 or $8. So, you know, if I found a canvas out there and it was $50, $60, I'm not at that, you know, threshold. I'm still going to end up spending about anywhere from $65 to $70 because of shipping and tax and things of that nature. So these are some of the things you have to take into consideration, okay, when you're shopping. And this canvas that I'm going to use today is pre-primed, but I'm going to probably put at least one more coat of gesso on it, maybe two. It kind of depends. I'll put a coat of gesso on there. I'll sand it, I'll test it out, see if I got the coverage that I want. If I need another coat of gesso, I'll put that on. Now, the gesso that I've been using now is from Dick Blex. It's Blex Professional White Gesso. I bought a gallon size because I use a lot of gesso. I'm doing a bunch of panels that I've got on another little work area over here out of the side of the camera, but I've cut some down to, you know, some of these are 8x8, some of them are 6x6 inches, some of them are like 4 inches by 6 inches, somewhere around in there. And then I've got some panels that I had to cut to 8.5 inch by 11. Now that's an odd kind of size, right? And why did I do that? Well, I bought some frames at Hobby Lobby that somebody, I guess, had ordered. They didn't sell. They marked them down. I bought 3 of them one time for $5, and I thought, hey, I'm getting a pretty good deal. 2 weeks later, probably at least 2 weeks later, they still had 3 left. And when I went back, they only wanted $1 for them. And I thought, you know, they were nice black frames. They're nothing real fancy or anything, but doing a small panel, that's all I need, right? So what I did is I said, well, I bought those. So I got 6 of those sizes of 8.5 by 11. You can't find a canvas that size, right, guys? So what do? You can make your own panel. In fact, I'll just show you one that I'm working on, doing a little. This is a MDF board that I've cut down, and I have sealed the back side of this, put a moisture barrier glue combination. It's a product that I've gotten at the local store. It's all-purpose sealer. I also mix it in with a little golden multi-purpose gloss medium. Mix that in together, and that seals this panel off. And I did the sides and the back and everything. And then I started in. This has already got 1 coat of gesso on it, and I've already sanded it smooth. And I'll probably put at least 2, probably 3 more coats of gesso on these panels. But I've made 6 out of these. I had extra MDF board laying around, and I had some that I'd kind of what I'll call recycled. It might have had a canvas on it. It might have been a piece that I cut some time ago, and I thought, well, shoot, you know, I just measured it out. I got my little miter saw over here. I got a bandsaw over there, and I just cut it to the size that I need. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we'll just set this over here to the side. I've got these brushes that I use to apply my gesso. I cleaned them. I wrapped them in paper towel to dry out. We'll just chunk that over there. Got a little Mountain Dew. I've got this piece of canvas here. I'll drag it up. And it's an odd size, but what I'm going to end up doing is just cutting it off right here. And I'll use it later for something else, another project. In fact, I've got a 6-inch gallery wrap, and I think it's a 4-inch gallery wrap stretcher bars, because I had something on those. I don't know what it was. I didn't like it. I took it off. It wasn't worth saving. So I just trashed whatever that canvas was. So what I'll do is I'll use this piece to cover those canvases or stretcher bars. Okay. So I just draw me a little line right here, and get my scissors out. Just going to kind of walk over here. I may be off camera, but that's okay. I'm just going to kind of cut this off here a little bit. Try to keep this thing as straight as I can, and we'll just work it on up. I've got I know I have plenty of pre-primed canvas here to work with. To me, it's a little bit more difficult to work with the pre-primed canvas and stretching it than it is what I'll call, and I've used this term before, and not to offend anybody, and it's not X-rated or anything like that, but what I call naked canvas. It has nothing on it, right? So doesn't have gesso on it, nothing on it, and everything. So I'm just going to set this off to the side. Like I said, I will use this for another project. In fact, I might be doing that today, cutting those out, what have you. All right, so we're going to go through this thing, see if we can't get some of this stuff started here, and get this little project going on. So let me check my camera here. I'm just going to kind of zoom out a little bit and adjust it so you can hopefully see a little bit better. All right, so we've got this thing, and I'm gonna roll it over this way because I'm gonna be putting my stretcher bars on top of this. I'm doing a 40-inch by 30-inch stretcher bars. I came out here the other day when I had my stretcher bars on this little workspace here that I'm using, and I had measured out 46 inches by 36 inches. And that gives me 3 inches on all the sides to wrap and staple that canvas in, okay? Now, what I'm going to do, and any of you out there that have been carpenters or you have worked with cutting wood and things of that nature before, you always measure twice and cut once, because you don't want to do a cut and find out, oh crap, I measured it too short or too long, or whatever the case may be, right? So I'm just going to put this down here. This is a nice little ruler that I got when I was building golf clubs, so I use that from time to time. Technically, what I could do down here on this end is just, lift it up and make sure that it's, the right length. And you notice I'm turning this thing over. And why am I turning it over? Because my beveled edge, curved edge, wants to be up against this canvas, right? Okay, so I'll just stretch this down here like so. Come in here, get all that measured out. It's looking good. So I'll just kind of put that there, and all right. So we got all this straightened out, and I've got it measured out over here where it comes up. I like that. I did it over here too. Now, one of the things I noticed, see, this is a straight edge. I mean, it is straight. And what I did was I wanted to make sure that I get my canvas even all the way around. Right, I'm just going to slide it down just a little bit that way. It's kind of by feel. And I got enough to where I could stretch it over here. It may not be as straight this way because, I was just kind of free cutting it earlier, but that's okay. I'm going to have to slide it down a little bit because of, the overlap, and that's good there. And I got enough overlap to where I could get my pliers in here to help pull it straight. Since I pulled that down, I want to make sure this is straight. I'm going to go around here and check this out over here. I think this side's going to be like a little longer. Yes, it is, but that's okay. And because, in times past, I wasn't cutting it straight. But I know this is pretty straight because I lined it up with this straight edge from the edge of the canvas roll. Okay, so now what I want to do is I got to measure out, my 3 inches. And to be on this side so I can, wrap that up there. And we'll just kind of slide this down and hold it here. Hopefully this roll won't roll right into, the floor. I don't want that to happen. I'm just going to make a mark right there. Come down here and do the same thing. Got a little bit more to work with right there, which is great. And I can just hold this like so. Get my ruler. And that bad boy to slide down a little bit. Just kind of eyeballing it there. All right, so we got that there. And we're going to run this straight edge right up here like this. And I'm just going to slide this whole thing back a little bit. So I got a little bit of room here on the edge of my workspace to work with. Okay, so there we go. Got that measured, hold that bad boy down. and it fell on the floor, which is okay. I'm just going to take my little trusty measuring tape. I keep this in my pocket just about everywhere I go. I'm going to measure out about 3 inches from the edge here. Make me a little mark. I'm going to have to extend this line out a little bit. Back in here. There we go. And then I'll have to measure it up there as well, how far out I need to go on that side. Okay. And there we go. So we got all that measured out. I'll end up cutting it and we'll start stapling that bad boy in. All right, guys, so here we go. We're doing a little voiceover here, just talking a little bit about this time lapse here, just going around, working from the centers out to the corners, getting all the staples in, stretching it, pulling it tight. Had to get my stretcher pliers to finish this up so I make sure it's really, really tight. And it can be challenging. The larger the canvas, the harder it can be sometimes. But you just got to work with it, and practice you'll just get better and better at it. But I have to keep rotating it around, as you can see, and then eventually I'll just start working on the corners. The corners can be tricky. It takes a little bit of effort there. You want to make sure that your canvas is folded in the same way all the way around. When you're working on the corners, I try to cut out some of the excess canvas in the corners so it will fit a little tighter and it won't be so bulky. But you can see occasionally I did lift the canvas up to make sure that it was tight. I do like it like a drum. It's just so much better. But here I am working on the corners, going around, trying to get each one of them done. But it's starting to look pretty good, and I'm pleased with it. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed that little time lapse there, me putting this canvas together, 30 inch by 40 inch with a 1.5 inch gallery wrapped. I had pre-primed canvas here that I used, and I'm going to put another coat of gesso on here, at least one if not two. So real quick, I use this electric stapler here. It's wonderful. It's a whole lot better than the old staple gun I used to have. It's a lot easier on your hands as well. Does the job. Had to go upstairs and get my canvas pliers, because what I do is I start, put a staple in here, then I go over here on this side. And what I do is I work it around to where I want things to come from this side, from the middle to this side in the middle. I want to arrive to the corners pretty much at the same time. And at the whole time, as you notice, I was working on this thing and stretching it with the stretcher bars. I would also tug over here in the corner, because you want to keep that canvas straight, not just here, but out here too. And that helps you to get a tighter drum-like canvas. Now, I did have to get the hammer out a little bit there, and there's a few staples that I didn't get quite flush in there like I like it, so I had to hammer those down in, tap them down in there, which is fine. And then for the corners, I did a little lap over here, and I made sure that it was the same all the way around, and staple that in. And I had to use the scissors there to cut some of the excess canvas away so it would fit in there real nice and it wouldn't be all bulky and everything. But I'm really pleased with how this turned out. Got good sound. It does have a little play to it a little bit. And I can feel, as I press it in here, I can feel that little brace that I've got in there. Although I've got that brace set back a good 1/4 of an inch from the stretcher bars, but I'm just going to have to be conscious of that in working in this particular area. But anyway, I'm real pleased with it. Like I said, I already have the canvas. It's already pre-primed. I do have some other canvas over there that's not primed that I could have put on there. And if I had done that, I usually do about 3 or 4 coats of gesso. I try to sand in between. I like it to be a little bit smoother. One of the things I do too is I'll probably sand this down. Run a 220 grit sandpaper over it. Just kind of smooth out some rough spots that might be on the canvas when they manufacture it and prime it and that kind of thing. And I would recommend you do that just to make sure it's free of any places, any bumps or anything. You can rub your hand over it and kind of feel. You can buy a tighter canvas, woven canvas, based off the weight and things like that and how it's manufactured, so it'll be a lot tighter. You can get linen canvas if you're doing more portraiture work. I'm thinking about ordering some linen canvas and stretching that as well and putting some gesso on it, but because you know, it provides you with a smoother surface. But anyway, I'm pleased at how this turned out. But thanks guys for tuning in. Please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. We're trying to help the channel grow. If, leave a comment below if there's something that you'd like for me to talk about or go over, something that you may not have understood, or I could go a little bit more into detail, explaining more in depth as to the process here. But overall, that little time lapse was probably about a minute or so, maybe a little longer than a minute, but it was about a minute. But it took me a good 30 minutes or so to stretch this canvas. And I'm real pleased on how it turned out. I got some ideas as to what I want to paint on this thing. And so check back later. You might see a progress report as to, okay, here we are. I did all this. I mean, it was after I figured in how much canvas I used, pennies probably, maybe a couple, $3 worth of canvas, because I buy it in a large bulk roll. So, you know, even if I spent, you know, $5 on this piece of canvas here, I'm still coming out about 20 bucks all total with my materials. I already had the wood glue, already had the nail gun, nails, all that kind of stuff, you know. So basically it's just, you know, the wood that I purchased and attaching the canvas and your time and effort and everything. So you can do this too. It's real easy. If you'd like for me to demo, if I don't already have a demo of this out on YouTube on building stretcher bars, hit me up. Let me know. Leave a comment below. Hey, Victor, do a demo on building stretcher bars. I'll be glad to do it. And but anyway, guys, take care, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye now.